there's two separate questions to think about when we talk about Nico Harrison and the decision by the Dallas Mavericks on Tuesday to fire him after another crushing loss, after another night of fire Nico chants, after all of the disaster going back to February 2nd of last year. The first question is whether Nico Harrison deserved to be fired, and the answer unequivocally was yes. It is rare that you see so many people in agreement in the NBA, from public speaking, public facing, credible reporters talking about the need for this to happen. Because, well, if you talk to these human beings on a regular basis, it's really hard to be like, yeah, you should be fired. Now, credit to Isaac Harris of Locked On Mavericks, who literally asked Nico Harrison last year, why shouldn't you be fired? But in general, it's just kind of weird to want that for somebody. We don't want somebody to lose their job. Like, that's a bad event. That's a pretty horrible thing to think, is like, this person should lose their job. And yet what Harrison did to the fan base in particular justifies this move no matter what. That's what I said at the time. I said it after. I said it in the summer. I've said it consistently, and I'm not the only one, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. There is, in fact, a connection, a tether, a community. There is an environment. There is an ecosystem within basketball. And the owners are the apex predators that get whatever they want whenever they want. And the players, the superstars, are like right below that. And at times they can even overcome those other apex predators. Then you have the role players who just want to be able to exist. Then you have coaches, front office members, staff, agents, everyone who's kind of at the whim of these larger creatures. And then you have the fans who are just kind of scuttling along, trying to subsist on the flora and fauna that exist throughout the ecosystem. And very rarely do the fans actually get a say in what happens. Very rarely do fans actually get to be heard. And that's one of the real problems, I think, with the social contract structure of the NBA, is that there has become more and more, there has been a weakening of the bonds of fandom towards NBA business. But this was an exception. The fans made this untenable for the Mavericks, because every loss wasn't upsetting to Mavericks fans because they lost. It was a referendum on the trade. It was a reminder of the trade. Every loss came with, if we had Luka, we win that game. Every loss was oh, and we traded Luka Doncic and got only a first back in Anthony Davis. So there was no way this was ever going to be palpable for them long term. And this was an instance where fan reaction, where fans made their voices heard, and it elicited action. The Athletic reported on Tuesday morning that Patrick Dumont, sitting courtside, was approached by a young fan in a Lakers Luka jersey who sat down and wanted to have a conversation with them. And Dumont wound up apologizing and said, we're going to make this up to you. I don't know whether that was before or after the decision to fire Nico Harrison, that the Athletic reported on in a meeting with Rick Welts, another Mavericks senior leadership. But it's interesting. And regardless, the constant chance, even with a chance to win the game at the line last night, PJ Washington heard them. That's an untenable situation. So the decision to fire Nico Harrison, no one is going to, well, there will always be someone on the internet, but most people, most reasonable people will not be like, what? Why? Everyone understands that Nico Harrison needed to be fired. But the more interesting question is this. I don't think Nico Harrison was going to be right. I had this Mavericks team projected as the 13th in the Western Conference, and Mavericks fans were very upset about that. I thought they were going to be bad anyway, because Anthony Davis doesn't make anybody better. He just doesn't. We have no history of him being successful as the number one option. He has never been the best player on a team that went anywhere serious, ever. That has never happened. LeBron was 40 and still the best player on the Lakers. Says something. Kyrie Irving, kids talked about him possibly returning before the end of 2025. I think it's very much more likely that he winds up taking until next season. We'll see what happens. I have no insight into Kyrie's recovery process, his training process, his mindset, his approach. And maybe he is entirely different from where he was 4 to 5 years ago when I know he would have taken the entire season off. Now he might come back. Derek Lively's been out. He's clearly their third best player, fourth best behind Cooper Flagg. So there's an opportunity there for them to build something. And Flagg has started to show real substantive growth. He's already kind of adjusting and getting better in the NBA. There's talent here. PJ Washington's played phenomenal. So the question here is this. If the Mavericks, when AD returns, take off, let's say AD is that guy, that I'm wrong, and Anthony Davis makes everybody better and dominates and gets back to MVP form, and the defense suddenly locks in, and they become a good team. I think it's unrealistic to look at this squad and be like, yeah, this team could win a championship or make a Final Four. But let's say that they're a playoff team. They get back, they get healthy, they stabilize. They're around 500. Kyrie comes back at midseason, and then they wind up making the playoffs. Was Nico Harrison wrong about this team? He was wrong for the trade. There's no way to get around it. I said that no one has been more critical of Luka Doncic, I don't think, than I have been about his lack of impact, about his conditioning, about his defensive effort, about the things where he has been anointed and given recognition for things that he has not yet accomplished. And even I was like, you can't trade him. Are you out of your mind? That's insane. You go down with the ship. You cannot trade this guy. And not just because of the fan reaction, because of how good he is. You figure it out. So Nico was always wrong for the trade. But if he was right about this team and how good it could be, did Nico Harrison deserve to be fired? That's a different question. The decision to fire Harrison comes after all these injuries. And this is not a one-to-one situation because, well, Michael Malone didn't trade away the franchise superstar and the person that literally many people named their children after in Dallas, and dogs. But the Kings fired Michael Malone after a really good start when they slid, when Boogie Cousins got meningitis. Nico Harrison's entire theory concept was that this team would be good with Anthony Davis. Now, they lost with Davis too before he got hurt, but that was so early on. If Davis doesn't get hurt, maybe they stabilize. Oh, but Davis always gets hurt. You're right. You're absolutely right. There's a reason he's called Day to Davis. But he also played a lot of games last season and the year before. He's been more available. Not really available, but more available. If the idea was that this team would be good when healthy, and you were willing to give him that leash to do so entering the season, you didn't fire him in the offseason, was it fair to fire him now? And the answer is probably no. That you fired Nico Harrison before whatever insane concept of a team that he thought without a point guard was going to be able to have success was able to be proven true. It just doesn't matter. It could be unfair to fire Nico Harrison because of the reasons that you did, which is that they suck right now, and still be the right reason for all the things that you ignored. It should not have taken Patrick Dumont 9 months to realize the damage that Nico Harrison caused the fan base, the franchise. It should not have escaped him that there were fire Nico chants at other sporting events. When they're chanting it at Stars games, when they're chanting it at Rangers games, when they're chanting it at all of these different events, that's an indication to you. And it should not have taken this long for them to be heard. Because had you pivoted this summer and tried to just undo everything, maybe you could have gone into the season with a team that would have been worse, honestly, talent-wise in this squad, but might have given fans a fresh breath of air. A young, fun team. That's got to be the goal now. You have to trade Davis. You have to trade Davis for draft picks and for compensation in the form of young players who can help them build around Flagg. Don't try and be good now. It's so tempting to do this with rookies, and don't do it. Build slowly. Watch the Spurs. Watch what they did. Watch the Thunder. Watch what they did. Be patient. But ultimately, that question I think is really fascinating of the reasons they fired Nico Harrison. Because if the Mavericks had started out 7-2, Nico Harrison's not fired right now. But he would still have deserved to be fired all the same. And that's a really interesting question going forward. For more on the Mavericks and the rest of the NBA, check out Hardwood Paroxysm on Substack.